Hello, everybody, once again to episode 99 of RT Talk. If people are just like finding us on YouTube, that probably sounds like we're lying that we have 99 episodes of this show, but we do. This is the 99th episode of RT Talk. Welcome back, and I am Michael Cool, and joining me finally again, the prodigal son has returned, and Mr. Doug Kirkwood. Hello, Mr. Doug Kirkwood.
Hello, it's great to be back. Hello, everybody, if you're watching on YouTube.
Doug brought his layers and his trying to blend in hat, so he's ready to stay warm and to talk about the things, the litany of things we have to talk about. As usual, we have some stuff that is more discussion and some stuff is more kind of a mention. But more like the biggest thing, without even question to me, is the fact that Rooster Teeth is for sale right now.
Highest bidder, $10.
Doug wants me to buy it. I don't know if he understands how money works, but he wants me to put it in an offer, put it in a bid.
I assume you have a lot of money.
I do not. I believe you make more money than I do, so maybe we'll go in together and see if they'll take our offer of almost nothing.
Perfect.
But yeah, it's a story, and if you are watching this or listening to this, I'll have the link to this story in the description / I guess they're both descriptions, but pretty much Warner Media has put them up for sale or is seeking a buyer for Rooster Teeth Productions LLC. Now, whether or not they will be sold kind of remains to be seen, because being put up for sale does not mean you will be sold, because in this article it kind of talks about how they've, especially for the pandemic and everything, it's sort of difficult to sell off certain parts of their business. Like they mentioned Crunchyroll, which they actually sold off to Sony for $1.2 billion last year. But there was, it's somewhere in this article, but it's about a different part of their division that they tried to sell off, and it took them a long time, and I think they ended up having to like partner with somebody, so it was like much different than what they were looking for. But I would be surprised if this does not go through, if they don't, not that they wouldn't be able to find someone, but that they would kind of backtrack and try to like keep Rooster Teeth. But I guess, this is not that long of an article, so I think it's pretty important. So, it says AT&T Incorporated is seeking a buyer for a piece of its Warner Media division, Rooster Teeth, as part of an ongoing winnowing of non-core assets by the phone giant. I've never heard the word winnowing.
I have no idea what that is.
WINNOWING. I've never actually heard that word, but winnowing of non-core assets by the phone giant, according to people familiar with the matter. The pandemic has complicated efforts to sell the business, said the people, who asked not to be identified because the matter is private. Rooster Teeth canceled its annual RTX convention last year in Austin, Texas. They did it at home, so they certainly lost some revenue doing it that way. And then that points out, and in June, co-founder Bernie Burns, who served as chief executive officer, left the company. The only one that they mentioned left. I understand He's a big deal for the company, but still. It wasn't clear how much money AT&T is seeking for the business. Now, what's interesting in this article, too, is this is the first time I've heard...
Oh.
What's that?
Winnow.
Oh,
remove word. I had to know. Remove people or things from a group until only the best ones are left.
Okay.
That hurts.
Yeah, it's a pretty harsh definition.
It's a good word.
It is.
Hurtful.
And be prepared to hear me use that word a lot in the episodes going forward. And it's just a winnowing of what they're trying to do. I'm going to be using it. That's what I do.
It's always incorrect.
Yeah.
That was a real winnow over there.
Yeah, I'll use it completely wrong for the rest of my life. And someone will eventually correct me, and I go, I don't think you're right. And I'll keep using it wrong. But in this article is the first time I actually have heard real dollar figures for Rooster Teeth and like in terms of revenue and everything. Because as we've talked about, and mentioned in some of our videos and in, related to the comments we get and stuff, but it's a constant thread of people saying that Rooster Teeth is going downhill. Always that they're collapsing. They've been going downhill since Ray left, since this happened, since that. They always have a marker for when they stopped watching, basically, and then since that point, it's been bad. So, which is never, that's not a way to actually reach a conclusion. This, however, you can actually take some data from and have something to actually back up that argument a little bit. But it's a little bit further down the article, so I'll just get through the rest of this. It talked about like how they're trying to basically have more, like collect more money, trying to put it towards different things. Like the whole 5G thing is happening, so they're trying to put money into that. So they're basically just trying to save money. So this is the part I was talking about. As AT&T discovered with its DirecTV satellite television division, declining businesses aren't an easy sell. After seeking a buyer for that division for months, the company decided to spin it off into a joint venture with a private equity firm, TPG. That's the part I was talking about where they had an issue.
Selling.
Yeah, selling off and having to like partner with somebody. So this is where the real like data comes from, or the real metrics. The winnowing of numbers, as some may say. Even before the pandemic, Rooster Teeth was struggling. Revenue slumped to about $50 million in 2019 from about $70 million a year earlier, one of the people said. It was founded 18 years ago, and then they kind of just talk about what it is. What's interesting, it says, today it is best known for the animation series RWBY, which is probably true. I'm not like doubting that, but I'm used to Red versus Blue being what they're known for.
But as a whole, like as outsiders and anybody, RWBY's what they're like, oh, they make RWBY? Okay. So yeah, I definitely would agree that's their biggest property as of now.
I mean, it definitely makes sense. Even when you look at the crossover, I mean, I guess they don't own Halo, so it would be harder to do, but when they do the crossover stuff with the DC Comics, which I think the physical copies are out now, the issues of that. But like when there's like a crossover or there's some sort of mention or collaboration or something like that, it's always has to do with RWBY. So it's like I don't know that I'm necessarily surprised, but that like RWBY would be what they're best known for now. I think it's just like this is one of the first times I've seen it put actually down, like saying no, they're known for RWBY, because my entire life, or my entire time being a fan, I should say, they've always been known for, it's always Red versus Blue. The company that makes Red versus Blue, like they always throw that in there.
Well, RVB maybe isn't as popular as it used to be.
I think that's probably definitely the case, especially since Halo isn't as popular as it used to be. Like it's one thing at the peak of Halo 2 and 3 when like Halo was on a like directly straight up projection.
It was the Xbox game.
It was the shit. And it's just years since, and it doesn't have that same momentum with it. So I mean, I think just on that alone, I wouldn't have a hard time believing that. But no, it's interesting to see that their revenue went down to $50 million in 2019, and it was $70 million the year before. And this, I should say too, if you're just listening, I'm reading this on MSN, but it says it's a Bloomberg article. So I think they just kind of copied the Bloomberg article and put it on their site. So, where those metrics come from, I can only trust in the source as far as I can. But like I said, that's the first time I've ever seen any type of like metrics to talk about like how things are actually going down, other than when they talk about views. But views are so hard to really read into when it comes to anything, because even now, like all of a sudden there are some videos that they've put out where it's like like I think it was with Minecraft, they're doing the You Dead series again. It's season 4 of it, and they have Geoff back in there. They have everyone together, and they keep bending the rules. So when someone dies, they're like, well, maybe they'll just bring them back. Like they just want to keep playing together as a whole crew. But like the views and stuff, it's like when you look at some of the, like the Stone Block, I think it was like 150, 250,000 views like per video. And then the first of You Dead has like 400 and something thousand views. And then they're all like last time I looked, they were like 300 and like plus thousand. And it's like, sometimes they just hit a stride or they find a new thing. Like when Gmod first started happening, it was getting 500,000 every single episode. And it's like, there's ebbs and flows with it. So it's hard to say that just because maybe they're in a slump with it, and especially with the pandemic and everything else, all the controversies that happened. It's like some people are just been burnt out and they just like need a break from everything. And of course there's the people that they naturally would have lost too through the different purges that they've done, and different, not like saying like when they're getting rid of people who are just, leaving terrible comments towards people, but like when everything happened with Ryan and everything, and all the people who are just like, I can't trust them now, because I feel like even in their minds they feel like they should have known. Like to me, there was probably a purge there of just people that just were gone, like that just had to like step away completely. So I can only imagine that their revenue has dropped from that 50 again, especially considering this year, and then having to try to do other content at home, which, as we've talked about like ad nauseum of about how it's like I feel like it's different, but still, it's like I would imagine that they've continued to take a hit, but. To me, if this podcast made 50 million a year, we're still doing pretty good.
We're doing fine.
Yeah. And naturally, there's a restructuring that's happened, and they've moved people like pieces around. They changed the company a lot. This is obviously around the time too, whenever Warner Media kind of, I don't want to say stepped in because I don't know obviously the behind the scenes stuff that really changed around, but I mean it is one of those things that it's seen a change in the last like 3-4 years than it has been for what I would say is most of its run. Like content does feel different. It's like it's hard to tell like again over the last year just because everything's been weird, but it's still like their content definitely does feel differently. So there are a lot of moving pieces in it. It's more so it's like there was even a comment someone left on our video that said like just let this company die or something. Stop trying to save it. Which I was like, to me, I thought was bizarre. Like, that's what they thought we were trying. Like, we thought we were going to step in with our, 200 view video to save the company.
I wouldn't think it was that. I think they were just saying, like, hey, as a whole, let this company go.
Well, yeah, I think for the part where they're saying just let them die. But still, it's like, it's still just a weird thing. Like, stop trying to save us. Like, when I don't have an obligation to them. I watch their content all the time. I like what they do. It's not like a thing, but like I said, like the people are saying just let them die. But it's like even if they made if they made 25 million this past year, that's still $25 million that they can build back up from. Like there is no one that I've ever come across that has like think of anyone in any field. Like there is ups and downs through the whole thing. So maybe they'll be able to like actually build it back up and have this new thing, or maybe it will stay in like this kind of range. But I don't know. I just kind of feel like they're still obviously in a good spot. They're not like, it's not like we're losing money or anything. And considering what they do, if they play video games for entertainment, and a lot of times they play the same video games. So it's not like they're even buying new ones or anything. So it's like, you have to imagine like that's a pretty good revenue for what, obviously the studio side's a much different animal, but
right
for like what is like their daily, I would say earner pretty much, it's a pretty like low cost after you kind of get the initial setup. Obviously there's maintenance and things break and replacing, but, still it's like, it's something they can actually are absolutely recover from, even if it has dropped down significantly from there. So again, I watch their content. I enjoy their content. I've always primarily kind of leaned towards Achievement Hunter more so, but they were always the ones that were putting out daily stuff. But I still on board, and I hope that they can kind of recover and find. Or again, saying recover, it's a lot of money even to fall to, but kind of build back up and kind of find their stride. Because let's be honest, they're talking about 2019 and 2018 and stuff. Since we started doing this podcast, a lot has happened.
A lot. It's been mostly bad things.
Yeah. So it's they are. I would say the company's absolutely shaken. Like there's a lot of things that are. They kind of have to get the ball rolling again, and I don't know. They have to kind of figure it out. Like Achievement Hunter is still going basically the same as it always has. But as we talked about before, which we'll talk about in a little bit too, one of our subjects. Oh, I didn't even mention. I usually mention up top what the things we'll be talking about. But one of the things we'll be talking about a little bit later is like how something we not alluded to, but I guess was mentioned in a previous episode about how they want to restructure the Rooster Teeth YouTube channel to make it encompassing of the company as opposed to just about like Barbara and Blaine and Chris and everything.
Right.
So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So, it's one of those things that they just have to figure out and get this stuff nailed down. But since I didn't mention it at the beginning, I'll mention it now, even though we're 15 minutes into this. The rest of this episode, we're talking about the sale of, or potential sale of Rooster Teeth, whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk about which is more so. It's a pretty quick one, but talking about I have notes and an update with that. A Gus and Geoff podcast that was teased. The new thing that they're going to call the RT Core people. I guess a rumor, but it's basically confirmed thing about Kai. And then we'll talk about just a few things like the Rooster Teeth, the name change thing that happened, and then Jeremy having a random appearance in a very large YouTube channel's video. But so we'll get to that in a little bit here. But just to finish, I think that's about it for the. That's about it for that article. Like I said, if you want to read, I read all like the key points of it. Most stuff I left out was kind of describing what Rooster Teeth is, and then talking about like some of the history and everything. So, but if you want to read it, it'll be linked in whatever description you're watching or listening to this in. But in terms of them actually selling, I mean, I do wonder kind of what this will mean going forward, because. Like when you think about, because like we've talked about several times, like the influence that Warner Media has had on certain decisions, and then there's always the question when something happens or when a decision is made or when this person leaves, does it have something to do with them being like their new bosses basically, like and always like because like they had when there was the layoffs and they let go of whatever percent of the staff, it was pretty much, or at least for as far as I remember, it was pretty much like believed it was because they had been purchased effectively by Warner Media, and that's a common thing that they do to cut costs of like a new asset, is that they'll kind of start chopping it down.
Was it the first or second time was because the video game didn't do well, or the video game was done?
Well, I think as far as I know, there was only one set of layoffs.
I thought there was two, but I remember the layoffs I'm thinking of then. I thought they said majority of the people were the ones working on I forget what the game's called. The
Vicious Circle.
Yeah.
Well, because when the layoffs happened, it may have been talked about at that time, but it was, as far as I remember, I didn't actually hear that then, that it had to do with the video game. And then it was later on when they did the Stuck at Home podcast with Bernie and Gus and Geoff and everything. And then Bernie was talking about the layoffs and said, but people didn't realize that like most of those people had to do with the video game, which the video game didn't work, or something along those lines. So it was like context to the layoffs and everything, but yeah, it's like there was a lot of things that happened in this time. So like it does make me wonder if, like who would want to purchase them, or if what would be the option if there is no offer that they want to take. I assume they're not going to just let them go. They're going to want some kind of money. So
they can't buy themselves out.
Yeah, like I would assume there would be something like that if they wanted to do that, but I have a feeling the powers that be at Rooster Teeth now, if they were wanting to sell to a company the things that have come along, like the crossover stuff they've done with Warner Media and the different, everything under the umbrella of Warner Media, I would assume that they would want to have another company that'd be over them that would be funding different things, like this basically bigger bankroll that they could have access to.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I also wonder what it means, because Warner Media is how they got through all the HBO Max stuff, which I'm assuming there's deals and like contracts in place. But what does that mean because like Genlock was on HBO Max, or is, I assume, still. And they were talking about like these different series that they were supposed to be like. There was a lot of like partnership stuff that they did with these different companies. So it's like I assume what's been announced and what they've done is like still in place. Obviously, they're not just going to axe all that stuff. But what does it mean going forward once those deals or contracts or whatever they are, once those are done? I guess it would just be renegotiating probably.
Yeah, and like Warner Media would probably keep the rights to like Genlock and everything like that. I would assume.
I feel like it did have something to do. I think they were the ones that kind of had a lot to do with that, because then they got in touch with Michael B. Jordan's like production company or something that he had, and that's where the ball got rolling, and then that's where they got fucking this like A-list cast to come aboard and do that show.
Did you ever watch Genlock? I never did.
I didn't. I always meant to, and then it's just one of those things it's like so many episodes of like podcasts and stuff that I listen to. I download it, I have it ready sitting there for like the time when I want to listen to it, and then all of a sudden there's an episode of something else. I go, oh, I want to listen to that right now, and then that episode just falls further and further and further down the queue, and then I'm scrolling back through. Like, I was like, how many episodes do I have downloaded to my podcast app? And I just go back. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot all these. This is from like September. Jesus. So it's just one of those things that just kind of fell by the wayside, and I never watched. But I always meant to. And, but I think I remember it had to do with, it was like a push from Warner Media or something like that. I don't know. I'm sure if there's anyone that has a clear picture of how Genlock started, they'll probably let us know. People have been very, very willing to leave comments on these videos. So if you know, let us know in the comments, because honestly, I don't remember exactly how that whole thing kind of developed and got put together. But yeah, I hope that whoever does buy them, I mean, it's a pretty generic opinion, but I hope that this means good things for the company. Because like I said, it's hard to. I try not to go too much into like the speculation of what's going on behind the scenes, because you, me, and everyone who leaves the comments online, we all have no idea what goes on behind the scenes.
Nope, not at all.
And every time something bad happens, or anytime they don't like certain pieces of content, there's a certain like faction of people that'll then go to say, like they'll basically blame it on Warner Media and them being like selling out to Warner Media, or like this came from the top or whatever. And it's like, I don't like wandering down that path, because like I said, we don't really know what happened or what the decisions were. I do know like the content overall, like the company does feel very different, and it's undeniable that once they were kind of purchased, a lot of the personalities left. I mean, every week or every other week, we were doing an episode about a group of people leaving or an individual leaving. So like there was a lot of key people that I feel like I really do like, honestly now. And I know this isn't a blanket statement, because there's going to be some people who left of their own volition, or maybe we're moving on anyway. But I do think it was a huge blow to the company to lose that many on-screen people. I mean, it's impossible not to.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it changes the dynamic, it changes fan base. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and like we talked about with the RT core people, like there's a lot of the people that were in there that were like, they were sort of like, in a sense, it's kind of a rude way to put it, but for a long time when it came to like the RT podcast or anything else, they were kind of like second string. Like it wasn't often that you would see Blaine on the RT podcast unless Gus, Bernie, Gavin, or Barbara like couldn't make it, basically. And Blaine was obviously in a lot of stuff, and this is like, again, it's kind of it's not a knock against Blaine at all, but that's kind of how that's sort of like the cast and crew was. And I feel like a lot of those people were then moved up to be to take the place of all the people that were that had left, because they were sort of and this is something this is a Scrubs reference, because Scrubs, it's probably still is like my favorite show, but they used to talk about how they had their side characters and stuff that they refer to as their weapons chest. So they had like characters like the Todd, and the characters that weren't on screen all the time, they still had their fair share of stuff and like beloved characters. But then they also had like people like Dr. Mickhead and like Dr. Beardface and everything. This big cast of characters they always said was like The Simpsons, or it was like this. I forget. There was two things he would always want to combine, but The Simpsons was one of them, because The Simpsons has tons of characters and you can do so much with those different characters. And I kind of feel like that's what Rooster Teeth had when they had so many different like on-screen personalities. It was if like whoever couldn't be on the podcast, they had so many people to choose from. And then when all those people left, I think it just, again, it sounds like a criticism for the people that are there, but it just, they lost out a lot on like the variety of people that they had and the people they could go to. And I was like, I don't know that, there's certain one, like I always loved when like, Ellie was on the podcast, or when they would bring in, I'm trying to think of everyone who's left by this point, but I just remember
there's been so many.
There has been, and it's like I enjoyed like when they did too, when like they would have like someone that maybe you don't see that often on the podcast, like whenever like Ashley would come on and be like Ashley and Bernie, and they're like telling stories about each other or whatever, or like Ashley would come in to like sit in for for Bernie, like if he wasn't there or whatever. So like people that maybe you don't see all the time that would be able to come on and then do that. And then it's like, oh, well, this person, they're busy, so we can have someone else. And like there was this sort of cast that they could always pull from. And obviously they still have a cast they can pull from. But I guess really what it boils down to is like the cast they had was so familiar to me personally, because all of them had, maybe they haven't been there for, like Ellie was only there for a couple years, but everyone that was pretty much there has been there for a long time. So it's like everyone was familiar. And then now it's like there's this wave of just a ton of new people. And I just feel like getting rid of so many people and then introducing so many new people, it's bound to kind of like, it's going to start to sway a little bit. Like it's going to take some settling and like that's a cure. You have to get used to all those people basically.
I feel like you're admitting you've aged out.
No, I'm not aged out. Not aged out. It's not an age thing. I'm as old as most of the people that work there. No, it's not an age thing. I'm saying like just in general for the audience, like talking about how like the revenue went down and stuff. I just feel like it was a huge blow for that many people to leave at once. And like I said, like when we were talking about it at the times, there's always like, who knows, like you don't want to commit too much to why someone left or, getting too much into speculation. But I just feel like there has to be something bigger than obviously what everyone kind of knows about why so many people left all at this exact same time, or roughly the same time
within a year.
Well, if you remember too, there was like 8 people or like something like that all left in what was it, August, I think, of like 2019. So it was like there was a ton of people that left, and that was right around the time too. It wasn't that long after that they did the layoffs. It was maybe like a month or two later, something like that. So it's like there was a significant amount of the personalities that left. And the only one I know for sure that you can actually point to that I saw was Bruce, because after Bruce announced he was leaving Funhouse, he was doing a live stream with, he was just like a Q&A with his chat and everything. And someone said, I remember they asked him, and we talked about this at the time too. They asked him if Rooster Teeth was not owned by or was not purchased by Warner Media, would you still work there? And he goes, I don't know. He's like, that's an interesting question. He's like, but I don't, or I think they said, would you still left? Because I think he said, I probably wouldn't have, or something like that. But it was basically, I'm paraphrasing heavily. You would have to go, I'm sure you can find that clip if you looked up the Bruce screen. But it's like right after he left. So, but it was something along those lines. But it's basically alluding to that there was some sort of influence from the higher up, whatever that may have been, that kind of was sort of the nail in the coffin for him deciding to leave. So, it's kind of, I don't know, to me it just feels a little undeniable that was sort of a huge blow to the company. And and the reason I even say that now is like, I really hope there's nothing similar with whoever would purchase them next, or what do they end up doing with them. It's like, I like, again, I assume they would want to have someone because then they have more money to put towards projects. But I hope there's not a repeat or even something similar to what happened after they kind of were purchased. And then, I don't know, it's, who knows how long it'll even take for this to happen and for them to switch and everything like that. But
they will be bought by Disney.
Dude, at this point, Disney owns everything, I think. So it wouldn't be surprising.
And Disney will, if you saw an episode of Ruby and then like Goofy's in the background.
The biggest Disney character out right now, Goofy.
The Goofy movie, one of the best ones.
It's very beloved.
Or, yeah. I can't think of her name. Anyway, keep going.
Minnie?
No, I was thinking the redhead from Brave. I can't think of her name.
Oh, I actually have never seen Brave.
Oh. I could say like Mierda, but I don't think that's right.
Well, I think Mierda is shit in Spanish, but I think it's Meredith or something.
Meredith from The Office.
Yeah, that's who it is. It's Meredith. Just imagine they redo Brave, but with Meredith from The Office. Awful.
Where are your panties?
Terrible. Terrible movie. No, but it's like I do hope that whatever ends up happening, we don't see a repeat of stuff like this. And I do wonder too, like once the sale happens, how will like the Warner Media era of Rooster Teeth be?
Mierda.
Mierda?
Merida.
Look up shit in Spanish. Maybe I don't know Spanish anymore.
Chica la cesta.
No, that one's burned in my memory. It's something close to that, but I took 2 years of Spanish and I learned almost none of it.
It is mierda.
Okay, so at least I was close.
You're right.
Mierda.
Okay, so I'm assuming there's some sort of historical significance to her being named that in the movie, but I'm guessing the name was probably changed in the Spanish speaking markets. Hopefully,
Shit.
yeah. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But I imagine I do wonder how people are going to look back on the Warner Media era of Rooster Teeth and everything, because
The Dark Ages.
well, it's like there was some cool stuff that I talked about when it happened. Like I like when you'd see them just pop up randomly in these bigger things, or like when they do like the DC Comics crossovers, or do something like the Batman, like when they had the Batman collection and everything. But there was some cool stuff that happened. But it's like it's kind of like when a head coach or something is fired from a team, then you kind of look at what happened between when they started and when they were fired, and sort of like if everything was bad, then you kind of blame the coach for it. It's kind of like how it always works.
Yeah.
Or just anyone that's in charge of any sports team. But so it's like I don't feel like if they sell off to someone, I don't feel like the Warner Media era is going to be looked back fondly. I mean, there's great things that happened during it, but overall, I think everything that bad that had happened basically happened while that they were kind of in charge. So
The last 2 years or whatever it's been.
yeah, something like that. I don't remember exactly when that transfer happened. But either way, I kind of keep an eye out, and obviously once they find someone to buy them or whatever ends up happening, obviously we'll be talking about it on here because that's what we do. So
That's what Mike does, and I listen to him tell me.
pretty much, yes. And then we get together on Tuesdays, and Doug tells me terrible stories of things he's witnessed and experienced when we do Out in the Grapes. But yeah, we'll definitely talk about it then. Hopefully it's a good outcome because, like there was a whole like that what they were talking about for the DirecTV, whatever it was that they were selling off. They had to like find someone else to go through. Hopefully it's a positive direction and things don't continue to kind of go poorly here. So we'll keep everyone updated as we learn about it, even though it may be like a week later than when everyone heard about it. The next one, like I said, it's kind of like a mention sort of thing, but we'll kind of talk about it. So I Have Notes, which is a podcast that has not been around for very long. I was actually trying to see if they had like when their first episode was. Oh jeez, I have my windows smashed down. So the first episode, I believe, was in May or was on May 1st of 2020. That's what it looks like, unless maybe the site's just laid out incorrectly. So they haven't been around that long. I never listened to I Have Notes. There's a lot of podcasts that they've done that I have not, like I haven't listened to or any, like, there's a handful of them that they're doing. There's a new one now that's like, I think it's OTP. It's like Sarah Weems and Steffi, and it's like the kind of the behind the scenes kind of production people for Achievement Hunter. That one's just starting. But basically the story is, though, that I Have Notes is canceled. I just realized I didn't mention that. But I Have Notes is canceled, so I don't know. Someone was saying it was kind of like, this is based off one comment I read on a thread, but they said it was kind of like fan service, but they talked about pretty much anything. It wasn't just all based on anime. And I know Kerry Shawcross was a big part of it, and like when he was on Chump and stuff, he was always, or I don't know if you have to say always, but the one time he was on there, like right after it started, he was like shamelessly plugging it every chance he got.
It says, yeah, people with surprisingly full IMDb pages consisting of shows I really wish you could watch, discuss all things animation, entertainment, and the creative process.
Yeah, I think that's how they pitched it at first, was like because that's why it was called I Have Notes, because it was about the creative process and like talking about different parts of it. But then I think it just kind of evolved and became a chit chat sort of podcast.
As all do.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. That's what people like. People like to listen to people talk about stuff. But yeah, so that I Have Notes is canceled. It's like I said, having not actually listened to it or anything, I don't really have a lot to say about it, because it's just one of the many podcasts that they've done, but this one is coming to a close. And I don't know if maybe they said a reason, or if it was just maybe just wasn't doing well, so they just kind of pulled the plug.
I mean, they made it a year. Tomorrow's May 1st.
Yeah, the last episode was April 23rd, so it was basically a year that they made it. But it's canceled for now, but we also know fan service came back and sports ball came back, so who knows? Things kind of have a second wind eventually. But staying in the podcast realm, this was something that I didn't see, but someone posted on the subreddit talking about a conversation that Gus and Geoff had on the post show for the RT podcast. And it was about like how they were trying to start a podcast together, the two of them. And they said like it wasn't even a podcast that was like meant to be like funny or like jokey and stuff. And I guess they said they had trouble like finding things to talk about, because there's so many podcasts that they do that you kind of use everything you're going to talk about on those other ones.
Yeah.
But they ended up like they recorded an episode, and I forgot to pull it up before we started, but this person's synopsis of it anyway was that like they recorded like an episode, but they didn't like put it out because they didn't feel like it was very good, didn't have like anything to talk about, and that they were kind of talking about like how Austin has changed over the years and it was much more serious, and they didn't know what the audience would be for it. And I was like, I mean, that's almost exactly what the podcast I'm looking for. Like, I don't necessarily need like the Austin stuff. I'm not necessarily, but that was one of the things I always liked, is that the conversations weren't always going to be like, oh, let's joke around, let's have fun, let's make people laugh. It like almost naturally had an element of serious conversation that would be put in there too. So it always went kind of back and forth to like when they were just going back and forth telling plane stories, and Bernie tells that story of the guy saying like goodbye to his kids on the plane and stuff like that. Like stories that when I listened to for the first time sitting in Lowe's parking lot on my lunch break, just crying, laughing, listening to it. And it's like stuff like that. But then they would get into like current event things and like have really serious conversations, and they would go down the road of not like wanting to shy away because it wasn't like comedy or whatever. So it's like I prefer to hear like those types of conversations. Like that's kind of what the foundation was. So I assume that eventually we'll hear the episodes, and you know they'll announce and stuff like that. Which actually reminds me too, because a couple episodes ago we talked about them having a podcast together, because they did that. There was that photo that Geoff put up of Gus with they were like outside of a restaurant or something, and they had all the podcast equipment. So I remember at that time I was like, I'm ready for this. Whatever this is, I'm ready for it.
They were sitting at a restaurant in Austin talking about how Austin sucks.
Yeah, I don't know if that's when that was recorded, but that would make sense. Well, I guess, yeah, I don't know if at least how much it's changed. I don't know if they were talking about how much it sucked, but it's possible that is part of the conversation, because that seems to be the way conversations go. If you've lived in a place for a long time, you end up eventually talking about how it used to be. Just inevitably, it's what happens. But I hope that they do get this nailed down, because that's a podcast I would absolutely be here for. So I wish I would have. I forgot to pull that up, as I pulled everything else up, but I didn't pull that up. So I hope that that's the case, as that comes out, and I hope that they don't worry too much about it being a jokey, has to have like a laugh every couple. It's like, no, I enjoy like the podcast I listen to. I enjoy conversations, and like conversations you and I have, like naturally. I'm not saying like compared to our podcast, but like conversations you and I have naturally, we will always kind of switch back and forth between talking about something serious, and then we'll go down a very silly road, and then we'll be making each other laugh a lot.
Right.
It's like that's how conversations naturally happen. So it's like I hope that they realize that there is like people that want to hear that, and would just kind of do what they would like, do whatever comes natural and put that out, and then people will, if they like it, then they'll listen to it, and if they don't, then switch it up. Pretty much. I don't have to tell them that. They've been doing this way longer and to a way more successful degree than I have. But
A lot. Yeah.
yeah, but that, as someone who's been a fan for a long time, that's what I want. I don't need you to try to be like, make it more than what it is, I guess. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that sees the light of day, which I'm assuming it will eventually. But I love the anything that's similar to the old Drunk Tank. I love. Which, if anyone's been listening to this forever, they know this already. I used to talk about it like, I feel like every week for like 3 months. I mentioned it. It was a real problem. But yeah, so that's something we can look forward to or hope for anyway. The next thing is, I was talking about I was kind of teasing how they were mentioning the RT Core people were going to be kind of spin off into their own thing. So the Rooster Teeth YouTube channel encompasses all of Rooster Teeth and represents the company as opposed to just, Barbara, Blaine, John, Chris, Gus, stuff like that. So apparently, they are going to they're, I don't want to say rebranding, because it implies that like, I don't know, it implies like Rooster Teeth was their name, but Rooster Teeth is everybody, as they've been talking about.
Yeah,
but
the umbrella.
Yeah. So it's like that group of, Barbara, Blaine, Chris, Gus, like, all of those, the people you always see in like the Rooster Teeth YouTube channel videos, like Hardman and all that stuff, apparently are going to be called Squad Team Force. I don't know what that name, I think someone said it's based off of, I don't know if it's true, but one of the things I saw was someone talking about how it was something that was mentioned on like a, like one of the shows that it was like one of the site only shows, I think, or like one of the D&D shows or something. And I don't remember where I saw it either to try to look at it now, but yeah, apparently that's what the name they're going to be called. They have not really said what it's going to be like different about it, or like how it's going to work. They kind of just put the name out there, and it's sort of by like other people have been kind of, all but directly saying or like confirming that that's like what it's going to be. But I assume they're going to be just move forward with the stuff they have been doing, like the Hard Mode and all that and everything, and try to build up their own corner of the like Rooster Teeth audience to see like kind of what they can do. I want to see. I thought I had something. No, I thought I had a comment pulled up that was kind of described it, but it's not really explaining it. But yeah, it's not really a spin-off, but it is that the people you have pretty much been like over the course of the pandemic and right before the pandemic have been kind of come to be known as like what the Rooster Teeth YouTube channel is. Now being their own thing, which I'm assuming, obviously, as their plans are for the Rooster Teeth YouTube channel, they're still going to be on there. They want to have everyone on there, so
why wouldn't they? Squad Team Force.
Yeah, it's a weird name. I don't know, like, I understand if it's like from something that I just never heard, but it is a very bizarre one. I mean, Rooster Teeth is a bizarre name. It's an out there name, and they ran with it and made it very successful. It's, to me, I feel like the names of stuff is not really that important in terms of what it is. It's only important that it's memorable, and it's like it flows well. Like, you don't want it to be clunky or anything, and you want it to be like representative of what you what you are, and all that kind of stuff. But I think as long as it's memorable, and it's like, we couldn't just name this. We had to name this something related to Rooster Teeth in order to signify that's what we're talking about.
Right.
But as long as we did that, we could pretty much name this podcast whatever we wanted to name it, as long as people it would stick in their head. So,
as long as they associate it with a Rooster Teeth podcast.
Yeah, which has probably happened, especially with our the old logo, because it was very similar to the RT podcast logo, which I think I subconsciously did. Wasn't trying to directly copy theirs. I was just trying to make it red and white, and I just looked at the layout and I go, yeah, that's almost dead on. And then we switch it up a little bit. But, yeah, so the Squad Team Force, we'll see. I'm assuming they'll probably have like their own like channel and everything eventually, but right now there's not really much to say about it because there's not much really known about it and like what their plans are or anything. So I mentioned like an update or like a speculative update. It's not that speculative on Kai, because someone took a screenshot from the site, like a comment that she left, and was saying, so like, is Kai? Oh, did I just show him? Oh, I was like a whole must the sleeve. I thought I just showed bare armpit to everybody as I was talking. But they showed a comment by Kai on the site and asking, like, so is she officially working for Rooster Teeth now, or like she an official member? Because it was talked about that she would be like, probably would be coming in with like how she was popping up and stuff. And then there was the anniversary where she said, should we tell them? Why we talked about like a couple episodes ago.
Probably 2.
Yeah, because last week I was by myself and you were there for that one. So it was, probably 2 or 3 episodes ago. But her on the site now, she has the different, I think it's just the badges. I don't know if that's the correct terminology for it, but the stuff like you get the yellow star when you're a first member. It's like beneath your name. So she has 3 under her name, which is the yellow star, which is first member. The Rooster Teeth symbol, which means your staff, and it's like 3 like silverish blue stars, which says cast. So I don't know if that's completely, because I know I want to see if I can find. Oh, can I? Let's see. Okay,
what are you looking for?
I wanted to see like what Iffy said, because Iffy says the same thing, and he has the cast and the first member doesn't really matter, but the staff and the cast on his under his name too. So it's like, obviously Iffy's been in a lot of stuff. He's been in Rooster Teeth Productions, so it's, I don't know, maybe it's like that. I guess the only thing I get hung up on, like, is this a distinction that is given to people who maybe appear in and have or appeared in multiple things, or they have like an agreement with, or does this mean that they are an official employee of the company? I mean, it sounds like cast could be, that could be interpreted as a lot of things, but staff seems a little more like set in stone.
Like a recurring character as like cast, but not staff.
Yeah, like if you're just cast, like you're brought in to be in stuff, you've been in multiple productions, so you are a cast member who's been in several things. But staff says, like, I work here. I'm wearing, the apron and I have the name tags. You come ask me questions as staff, pretty much. And so it's like, it seems like, and because Iffy, I don't think, as far as I know, was never officially like announced as being a part of it. He's just been in so much stuff people kind of assume. But there is sort of like this, like, so like, is Iffy officially in, or does he just kind of appear in a few things? Because I also saw like for Iffy, he, I think he got a job as like a writer for Apex, like the Apex Legends or something like that. So it's like, I don't know. That's I don't know. It's
even a story.
I have no idea. Maybe I really don't know much about that game. I know, like, I've seen people play it a couple times, but I really don't. If anyone has any questions about Apex, look at me and turn the other way. I do not have answers for Apex.
Did you ever play it?
No.
I played it a couple times. Terrible. I'm terrible at it. It's not a terrible game.
Yeah, so I think you talked about how you were you were having a lot of trouble in your Apex playing with your nephew or something. I know you talked about it on a podcast once.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. It seems like she is. To me, it's almost honestly, it's a little bit irrelevant. It's because if they're in a bunch of stuff, it's not really much different if they're officially in or they're officially not. Like for where we sit as fans, it's kind of irrelevant whether or not they're officially a Rooster Teeth employee if they're just going to be in a bunch of content. But it's one of those things that it has people's interest to, like, okay, is she actually in or is he actually in, or like what's the story here? So it does seem like that is the case, and maybe I don't know, maybe they're like, for some reason they're waiting to make an announcement, or maybe like once they get back in the office it'll be more of a kind of thing to confirm and have her own seat and everything, but we'll see. I do know, I think since we recorded the last one, or maybe it was before, or I guess since the last episode we did, I know that Fiona actually said that she was moving, so she's on her way to LA now, so see kind of what that means for content in terms of Fiona being in stuff and how that all kind of shake out and end up being. yeah, so it looks like Kai's in, but we'll find out like officially official. That seems pretty significant evidence, but it's just weird to not announce it, I guess. So the last two things it's kind of, I don't know, it's just fun mentions, I guess. So the name change thing, because you talked about you talked about it, and it's kind of the same way that I was wondering too. Rooster Teeth made a tweet saying like, so we're 18 now and we can legally change our names, or what should we be named? I butchered how they phrased it, but it was something along those lines.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, so I wonder like if it's now that we're 18, we can legally change our name. What should we change it to? And it's the eyeball emojis that are like that.
Yeah.
like shocked looking off to, well, the eyeballs right, our left. So and I was like wondering if this was something they were actually going to be going down the road of considering, because like we mentioned, Rooster Teeth is kind of an odd name, and maybe they wanted to change up and maybe be like RT, or I guess RT is like what's Russia Today or whatever that news agency is. But like maybe they would have like obviously a nod and stuff like that, but maybe they would kind of just change it slightly or something. So at first I thought maybe this was going to be like a legitimate thing, and I was wondering kind of like what the motivation for it would be, and I was kind of basically keeping tabs to see. And then they put out a vote of different names, which were Chicken Dentures, Ratman Productions, Teeth McRoosterface, and Russell. And Russell came in close second to Ratman Productions. So I saw those. Okay, this is just like a fun, jokey kind of thing that they're doing.
They're having a good time.
And then for a little bit, they changed their name to Ratman Productions on Twitter. And they even put out a shirt that has... it's just so far up. So it just says Ratman Productions. It's a black shirt. It's a white box with black text that says Ratman Productions, and then a silhouette of a rat sitting on top of it. Ratman is a nod to Eric Bador, because everyone calls him like a rat, basically, and they put him down in that manner. But I was not convinced, but I was like, really took this as a real story for a couple days, because I think it was like 2 or 3 days in between when they said that and then when they put that vote out. But I'm assuming, based on the way you brought up to me early, before we started recording, that's sort of similar to what you had going on.
Yeah, I thought maybe with them being bought out, and they're kind of like, well, it's been 18 years, we should maybe think about a name change. And I was like, there's no way. I was like, Rooster Teeth is such a staple, and I feel like in the internet community. And then I saw Ratman Productions. I was like, there's no way this is real.
Yeah, once you see Ratman, you're like, well, probably not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be like, it would be very bizarre. Like, that's the only way I could see, like, if they would change, if whoever purchased them was like, well, we need to rebrand and refresh this, and like coming in with their, the corporate talk and trying to like, oh, well, the name's the problem. Because it seems like that happens a lot whenever there's an entity that has nothing to do with the thing comes in. They try to like find problems that are usually aren't really problems. Or you get like what happens a lot. You find, at least in my experience, there's a lot of people who try to justify their jobs by just making decisions. So I could see like something like that happening. But or maybe it's something they're considering, and maybe they put it out there as a joke to kind of get a feel for the audience and how they were going without it actually committing to it or something. We're wandering into the speculation portion of this.
This is all hearsay.
It is, which is it's fun to be here. But it's possibly maybe they're considering something like that. Who knows? Maybe they want to change the name to make it easier to sell too. I mean, there's a lot of like ways you can go with this, with that information. But yeah, apparently they were just Ratman Productions, and then they put out a shirt for Ratman Productions. So as of now, they are still Rooster Teeth. So as like I say a lot, but if there is any kind of real life update, if that does become a real story in any way, obviously we'll be talking about it in a future episode. Another real quick thing, which I actually didn't mention like on my list at the beginning, but they also did like a charity stream. I believe, but they raised $50,000 for hospitalized children via GameChange.org. So they were putting it on, and I don't know how long it goes on for, but there is a Omaze like drawing thing that for a chance. It says hang out with us. I'm not sure exactly who the us is, but I'm assuming it's just a bunch of Rooster Teeth / age / whoever people. Yeah. So, and I don't know if I don't really know much about Omaze. I know they do a lot of stuff. You can find different videos online from Omaze of like getting people like connected with like celebrities and stuff like that. And I think from what I understand about it, and again, I could be off, but I think that what they do is that you put money towards like potentially being selected, and that money, it's like a raffle kind of thing. So like whenever, like in our hometown, people do raffle stuff all the time where like everyone buys like a ticket to win, for living around here, it's like Pittsburgh Steeler like tickets or something like that. And then you put it raffle.
Omaze raises money for charity by offering incredible experiences.
That's their whole mission statement?
That's the first thing on their website.
I mean,
it says trending now, cars, travel.
Well, I think it's you put money towards like a raffle, basically, and then if you're selected, then you get to have this experience or whatever it is. And I know a lot of celebrities are involved with it, and you can find, like I said, those videos. And then obviously anyone who doesn't win, their money just goes towards the charity or whatever. But yeah, theirs was GameChange.org that they did. So they raised quite a bit of money for a pretty solid organization.
Tom Brady's on here.
I'm in. What's he doing? I don't name it.
Fuck Tom Brady.
Okay. I'm not really eager to meet him, but I wasn't gonna go so intense against him either.
Hang out at Rooster Teeth HQ and score a cameo on AH Animated.
Oh. So I wonder how that'll happen. The
enter to win. A winner is drawn. Donation benefits a great cause. Get breakfast with Rooster Teeth team and a personal tour of their HQ. Be drawn to the upcoming Achievement Hunter animated episode. Make an appearance in what?
Breakfast, you say?
Hot dogs.
You're saying they're going to feed me.
Make an appearance on the Off Topic podcast. Be flown to Austin, put up in a 4-star hotel, La Quinta.
Hell yeah.
You can bring a friend.
Yeah. If anyone's been to RTX, let us know if you stay at the La Quinta next to the Capitol, because that's where Doug and I stayed when we went in 2014 or whatever it was.
And it was filthy.
No, it wasn't. It was good.
I don't know about that.
The pool wasn't in the best condition. I had a lot of hair on my face when I was swimming through there.
I think I pulled a medical bag out of the pool.
I don't think that's accurate.
I think I jumped in and I pulled up a sandwich baggie full of medical supplies.
I know. Well, when we were there was a bunch of storms that came in, so a lot of stuff got blown into the pool that day. There was a couple of days we were swimming, but I think whenever I went in, if I remember correctly, I think I went in and I was swimming and I had like just hair like wrapped around my fingers. It was really like, gross.
The skimmer wasn't doing shit.
No, it wasn't. It may not have been on. That or there's just so much hair in Austin that it all just collected and landed next to the Capitol.
We're lucky we didn't jump in and snakes attacked us.
Which honestly could have happened, because I think we told the story when we talked about our time in Austin and stuff for RTX when we went. I mean, we could retell part of it now because we're better at doing this than we were then. But there was one night we were walking because, again, we stayed next to the Capitol, and I think we were just looking for drinks. I think that's all we wanted. We didn't want to go far. We just need things to drink. So we're like, oh, there's a 7-Eleven a couple blocks away. It's like, I don't know, like 10 o'clock at night or something. I'm like, we'll walk over there. And we're walking, like just talking. And, again, I have to reiterate this, next to the Capitol, the heart of Austin, Texas. And we're walking down and we turn around a corner and there's just like a 3-foot black snake just slithering down the sidewalk politely, was on the sidewalk, wasn't in the road or anything like that. It was like, there's just a full-blown fucking snake here in the middle of the city, just traveling from place to place. So we're
obeying all the traffic laws, crossing the crosswalk.
Yeah, if I was an officer, I could not find him. It would have been fine. He was doing everything he could have done. I think he waved at one point. He was very polite.
He had arms.
Yes. Well, just his tail. It just went out. I was like, hey, what's up? And then we walked by, and then we watched him basically slither under what we assume was a homeless person. I think there was a guy sleeping on it it was like a 2-step up to the entrance of a building. He was sleeping there, and the snake was going right for him. And it was a rat snake, or we're pretty sure it was a rat snake. So I don't think it was actually going for him for any reason, but it was headed that direction. Where like, oh, that guy's in for a rude awakening.
He never woke up though.
He probably woke up inside that snake. I think that's if I remember Anaconda correctly, that's what happened.
Ice Cube was there.
I think he was. He was walking out of the 7-Eleven when we walked in. That's how I remember it. But yeah, so it's very possible that pool could have just been filled with snakes for some reason in the heart of downtown Austin, Texas.
Doesn't matter. There's snakes there.
There definitely is, and cockroaches that fly through the air at you. That also happened. They're jumping at my face. But the last thing actually on the list and relevant to this weekend, not something that happened 7 years ago or whatever, 6 years ago, is like I said, it's a very quick thing, but and I haven't seen the video, but I know we'll watch it at some point because apparently Jeremy and Kat were on a Good Mythical Morning episode for some reason.
Were they?
It was it was like something about fast food.
Which food is the fastest?
Possibly. That sound like it. If I remember, the thumbnail was they had like a bunch of food like going down a slide or something like that. Let me see. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I was trying to pull it up, but for some reason my YouTube layout is all broken here. Yeah, I don't know why I can't click on my subscriptions and I can't actually go. All right, I guess I'll just manually type it in. It was.
Which food is the fastest game?
That's yeah. It's like the slide.
I just have this.
Oh, you found out the subreddit or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah. Yeah, there's a video from last week. Apparently, they show up at some point in that video. For a reason I'm not entirely sure, but like I said, we tend with Good Mythical Morning. What ends up happening with us is that we won't watch it for a while, and then it's the last time it was Renee, but it's like a marathon. It's just going through and watching them play like, Will It, whatever, or when they do the like the one that I always enjoy is when they do the taste test and they have to guess where the food comes from. So they have the dartboard and stuff like that when they play all those games. Or like when they try to guess like the generic version versus the whatever. Like all those ones I always enjoy. So it's like we just end up going through, and since like they have put out an episode a day and like we don't watch for like 2 months, it's like there's just a plethora of stuff for us to burn through and just watch day in and day out.
That's definitely like this morning. I probably watched like 3 or 4 of their videos like waking up because they're like in my Facebook feed. Yeah, I like Good Mythical Morning, and then like they just pop up. It's like which Pop-Tart is the best, or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, I gotta know which one's the best.
Or when they make like the gourmet version of whatever it is, or like
McGriddle.
Yeah. But yeah, so like I haven't seen any. I know Jeremy's obviously a Good Mythical Morning fan. Ready Set Show is very Good Mythical Morning. It's kind of the like, I don't know. It's like a
nod or an ode or a complete ripoff, however you want to say.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely different than Good Mythical Morning, but it's like the format is absolutely Good Mythical Morning. And even on we were watching a couple of Jeremy's streams, and he has his GMM shirt on. Actually, speaking of this, I actually saw in the wild a guy wearing a Good Mythical Morning hat in Newcastle.
That's
Did not
impressive.
expect that. Newcastle is the town that Doug and I grew up in, and we were there a couple weeks ago, like with my mom for I think it was either Easter or like her birthday or something, and we were up there and we went to go get ice cream, and there was a guy in line and he had a Good Mythical Morning hat on. I was like, I've never seen anyone wearing, like I don't see anyone wearing any kind of like YouTuber merch anywhere in our like specifically in our hometown. Definitely not there, but I don't really see it in person anywhere usually ever. And I was like, wow, wasn't ready for that. He may have been watching it when we were going through the line. He had an iPad with his connection, and he was watching something as he was walking through. But yeah, it was. I know we'll definitely watch it at some point, but because I am curious as to how the connection was made. But I know he's a fan. Obviously, Rhett and Link were on the RT podcast. They were in the Slow Mo Guys video. Might be my favorite Slow Mo Guys video ever that they were in. That was such a funny video. So it's like they obviously there's a connection there. But I am very curious to know, without just reading and seeing what people say about it, to have it just told to me, like what the reason was that they showed up in the video. So
you can watch it tonight.
I could. I got a lot of editing to do after we finish doing this, but yeah, I could watch it tonight. But yeah, that is the end of my list, and I believe that's the end of the episode. We made it just about an hour, so I think we packed a lot into that hour.
It was.
I think
I think it's a good episode. There's a lot to digest.
It is. Hopefully enough for people to wait 2 weeks and for the next episode. Hopefully it's
a choice.
Yes, but I'm saying hopefully that it was filling enough. There was enough calories to carry them through the next 2 weeks and give them stuff to think about. Or something huge will happen right after we're done recording, or it has happened while we're recording, or on Monday. And in that case, we'll probably have to put out like a small episode just talking about it. But either way, that's the end of this episode. We thank you for listening. We thank you for everyone who has been subscribing to the YouTube channel and has been watching our videos and liking the videos and commenting on stuff, because I had no inclination that the Fiona video would take off the way it has, because it honestly has not slowed down really. I mean, it's slowed down slightly from the fastest it was going in terms of views, but it pretty much every time I check on it, like if a couple hours goes by, we have like a couple hundred new views, and it's up to I think like 32,000, 33,000 right now, something like that. So it's like every week we're getting like a couple thousand for that video. I was not expecting that one to be the one that it's not like a viral hit, but for us that really took off. So it's a big hit for us, and everyone we've been seeing our subscribers have basically quadrupled now since then. So it's definitely been a big thing for us. So we thank you if anyone who has been subscribed and is subscribing, continues to subscribe, and everything else. So thanks. Thanks for being here.
We appreciate it.
It's doing just the audio version of this podcast. So much is left to just mystery. We don't know, other than like Spotify has a pretty good breakdown, but like everywhere else that we've like put the podcast up, it's hard to get real information on like who is subscribed, like who's listening. Like for a long time, even for like Apple Podcasts, it was like it wasn't really clear like how many downloads we had and stuff. And like on our hosting site, it would say like it breaks it down by which service was used, but then you go there and it's like it's not really clear as to what happened where or who or when or what. It's really hard to like when there's so many different places that host your podcast, getting nailed down information to know stuff. It's nice for YouTube to be very like straightforward and clear, like, oh, this many people subscribed, this many people watched, and it's like it's all right there. So it's nice to have some clarity on who's listening and who's who we're interacting with and stuff. And
right.
All I know is I can see by location, and there's certain places that as soon as we post an episode, they're immediately downloaded in those locations, and I'm like, hell yeah. I can only assume it's the same person every time. But yes, thank you for listening, and thank you for being here for whatever this journey is that we're on doing these podcasts. So we'll be back on Wednesday for Out in the Grapes, and in 2 weeks for another episode of RT Talk. Unless you're listening to this in 2 weeks, then there'll be a new episode already out. Then, and if you're listening in 3 weeks, it came out last week. You can do the math. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Doug. Thanks for showing up today. Rock on. Sign language. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
You too.